Hi, it's Jamie from Guildbrook Farm, and today I want to talk about the top 5 mistakes that new homesteaders make. So over the last couple months, we've had quite a few people emailing us with their plans for getting into the homesteading lifestyle. They just kind of wanted to know our opinion on what we thought, what would work and what wouldn't work, and we're no experts in this, guys. We're just kind of figuring this stuff out ourselves. But there are 5 things that I see continually and everybody that has presented us with a plan. There's 5 things that I've noticed that everyone's kind of missing, and these are things that we missed as well. So I'm going to point them out to you, and hopefully you guys can learn from our mistakes here as well, and that'll help you guys transitioning to this lifestyle. All right, so let's get started. All right, these are in no particular order, but number 1 is certainly a doozy, and that is underestimating the startup costs of a homestead. Depending on what you're getting into, whether, in particular, if you're getting into livestock, there can be a huge investment in materials for getting your homestead started. The cost of a chicken isn't very much, but when you start getting into things like fencing and housing and feed and bowls and all that kind of stuff, that stuff adds up significantly. When you get into things like goats, your fencing for your goats is going to be ridiculous. If you have to have a structure for your goats, that's a lot of money. Any kind of minerals or any of that kind of stuff for your goats, all that kind of stuff really adds up and costs a lot of money. Now, there are a lot of people that say they're gonna say that they can get materials for free, such as pallets, or they're gonna recycle or upcycle some items, and that's true. You can greatly offset your startup costs by having those items, but you're still gonna have things such as tools you need to buy and hardware you need to buy, and even this coop here behind me, which is almost made entirely out of recycled materials, we still had to put $100 into the wheels, and because we couldn't find a roof for that was recycled or anything on Craigslist, we had to purchase the roof for that. So there are different items that you're going to have to invest in for starting up your homestead. If you decide not to get into livestock at all, even things for your garden, amending your garden or tools for your garden. Yes, seeds don't cost very much money, but all this other stuff adds up. Cattle panel if you're trying to trellis. All these things can add up. And again, you can offset that by recycling or building your own, but you're still going to find that a lot of these things are going to cost you money. So your initial investment into whatever you get into on the homestead would be my number 1 mistake that new homesteaders make, and that would be underestimating your startup costs. So my number 2 mistake that I think new homesteaders make would be underestimating how long it takes to build new skills. Gardening is a great example of that. You guys have watched me for 2 years now struggle to try and grow a garden. It just takes time to learn how to deal with all the pests, to learn to deal with your environment. So if you miss that time frame in 1 year, then you have to wait a whole entire year to try that again. And if something doesn't work 1 year, well, then you have to start all over and try something new the second year. And if that doesn't work the second year, you have to try all over again and start the 3rd year. So that just takes time, and there's no way of rushing that. There are other things such as canning, where if you get into something like canning, it just takes time to build up that skill set. If you start getting into something like woodworking and building, if you've never built anything before, your first couple projects are going to turn out to be pretty crappy. Trust me, I know. I built a couple things and they're just awful. That's why I leave Jeremy to do all the woodworking things. So definitely number 2 would be underestimating your skill set. That's why it's really important that you start homesteading wherever you are and start building those skill sets up wherever you are, and that will help decrease that time. So my number 3 mistake that new homesteaders make would be not having a financial plan and not having a backup plan for that financial plan. So what I see or hear about a lot of people that they want to do is they want to quit their jobs in the city, they want to cash out on that home, they want to go buy a place in the country, 10, 20 acres. They're maybe starting up a home business where they're going to have a market garden. Maybe they're going to sell some eggs. They have XYZ planned out, and that's great, but what happens if that fails? What happens if you have a market garden and you don't have your market set up yet? It's going to take 2 years at least to build up your market. So that's going to take time, and you need to have some sort of income during that time period. On top of that, what if you have crop failure? That's another thing that very possibly could happen. So you're going to need to have a backup plan for that. In case of anything failing at all, or everything failing at all with your home business, you might end up having to commute to a regular job again. So are you putting yourself in a situation where you're too far out where you can't commute back to the city? So not having a financial plan and not having a backup plan to that would be my number 3 mistake that new homesteaders make when trying to get into the homesteading lifestyle. So my number 4 mistake that new homesteaders make would be in not researching your laws and restrictions for livestock and for any products that you produce commercially. So when it comes to things such as livestock, you need to do a lot of research on your particular area and what is allowed and what is not allowed. This may mean researching your county laws, your town laws, and any laws or restrictions in your particular area or in your neighborhood. By not researching these and understanding fully what is allowed and not allowed in your area, you could find yourself in a situation where you have to get rid of your animals or even relocate. When it comes to producing things commercially, such as a product, this could be anything from deodorant to selling eggs to selling chicken. You also need to understand the laws surrounding those. So some of your products may need to be made in a commercial kitchen. This may mean that you need to have someone come in and inspect your kitchen, or it may mean you need to go and rent out a commercial kitchen to produce these products. When it comes to something like eggs, you may need to wash your eggs, you may not need to wash your eggs, and there may need to be certain labeling on your eggs in order for you to be able to sell those on a commercial level. Something such as processing chickens. I know in this particular area, if you sell below 1,000 chickens, you can process them on your property, but more than 1,000 chickens, then you need to go and have them processed in a commercial facility. So make sure that you understand the laws surrounding both livestock and any kind of commercial products that you may be thinking of selling. And that would be my number 4 mistake that new homesteaders make. So my number 5 mistake that new homesteaders make would be in not being flexible. I would say the flexibility is one of the biggest mistakes that new homesteaders make, and it's something that they really need to consider when getting into this lifestyle. It's great to have a plan laid out as to what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, but sometimes life just happens, sometimes things just happen, and you might not be able to do things exactly the way you want it to happen. So for example, you might want to be completely off-grid and remote in the mountains with no access to anyone or anything, but you may find that you need to have internet access and high-powered cable access in order to provide income for your family for some sort of home business. Or for example, you may find that whatever home business you get into, that it's not profitable or that there's no market for it, and you might need to commute to a job temporarily or even permanently. And if you're too far out, you might find yourself doing a 2-hour commute. Just understand that there may be different things that you have in mind that sound really great, but they just might not work out for you. So just make sure you keep an open mind and be flexible in whatever it is that you choose to do. So those are my top 5 mistakes that new homesteaders make. We actually did this video in conjunction with 2 other channels, Brad over at Big Family Homestead and David over at Bama Homestead. Guys, this is a great way to learn from other people's mistakes, and it's going to save you a whole lot of time and heartache. So go and check out those other channels, understand what everybody's doing that they consider a mistake, and that way you guys can avoid that yourself. If you guys have any tips or tricks for mistakes that homesteaders make, leave those down below. I want to hear from you. And if you guys like this kind of stuff, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in tomorrow's video. Thank you so much for watching.